plan was made. Now, under notes, could you read or explain what you put under that note?
Yes. A code is nothing but a way of getting things done in the best possible manner. Electrical code, plumbing code, fire codes is to accomplish a task in the best possible manner. In the military, they have what you might call a Marine code, where you go about doing things, and they have maybe made tests on it to find out that if they do things in a certain structured manner, they get a certain result that makes the Marine operations, the military operations, more effective, and you can predict what the effectiveness will be. And it's the same with any work that people do that is efficient. Once you lock on to whatever it is that gets the task done in the best possible manner, then you do it always the same way every time, each and every time. Why? Because you have found from trial and error that you get the best results from doing it this particular way. And then you can say that you now have a code. Mm-hmm. Why? Because when you do it this particular way, whether it's a plumbing code or you're building a birdhouse, you go about doing it a particular way, and you say, well, every time I build a birdhouse this way, it turns out to be an excellent birdhouse. I've tried several ways of doing it, several ways of even installing the birdhouse in a tree. And I found out that if I install it in a particular way, that it turns out to be a successful birdhouse, for the birds. And if I did it some other way, well, it didn't work out too well. It fell off the limb or something like that. And so whatever the problems might be, you iron out all of the possible problems. That's what codification is. You eliminate. You try to foresee what the possible problems might be. And you have to find this out by trial and error. And then you say, well, now I finally got this thing up to the code standards. So I know when I do it this way, it will work. There won't be any doubt about it working because it always works. And that's what everybody should have, a code of thought, speech, and action. Of course, you always start off by thinking what? Thinking of how to make a code, okay? What's the best way? So you go about with that purpose in mind. That's your first thought. I need a code for when I go and make a presentation, maybe. If you're a speech maker or something, say, I need a certain way of going about doing it that would have the best effect. I'm going to a business meeting, and I want to have the best effect of anybody at that meeting. So I'm going to set up a way of saying what I have to say in a way that people will see that what I am saying will make the business operation much better than it has been before. And so that in order to do that, you have to think about how you're going to go about doing it. Then you will make up some paperwork and whatnot and practice making your presentation, I guess, and then you actually make it. And if it doesn't work out too well the first time, you make some adjustments and all like that. And so when you have your second meeting, then you find out that it worked out very well, or maybe the third meeting, and you say, well, now I'm going to stick to this. I'm going to stick to this pattern of making my presentation for how to this housing project that we're going to start. And I'm going to codify it in such a manner that everybody will know exactly how to go about doing this in the best possible manner, because every time we've done it this way, it's turned out to be a successful operation. The first little bit of improvement, maybe the third or fourth time. And it was only when you got to it the fifth time that you say, now, we pretty well got this thing codified. I mean, and any time we lay out, we're going to build maybe 30 or 40 houses at once, we're going to do it this way every time, because every time we do it this way, we don't have any problems at all. So this is our codified way of putting up these structures. And everywhere we go, we're going to do it the same way, right down to the letter. Why? Because it works best when we do it this way. Now you have a code. And so each and every person should have a code about how you go about doing everything that you do in every area of activity. Economics. Economics is about what? Given definitions, a compensatory definition, how you use your time and energy. You should codify how you use your time and how you use your energy when you have some time and energy that you have some options for. And then education. Codify the way that you go about learning things. I will do this and I will do that. I'll go here. I'll go there. I'll pick out the people that you contact in order to learn the things that you think you need to know about what it is you're trying to do. All right? And that's a code. Just might have a list of phone numbers of people in the business that you're in, or the business you want to go in, or the business that you're already in, or the employment that you're already associated with. If you're employed by someone else, have codified contacts where you can get the best information. And set that up so that you'll say, hey, I can go to this person or that person and get the best possible information about what I want to know in order to do the things that I have set out to do. And so you codify that. Economics, education, and the way that you entertain yourself, the third area of activity. Have that codified so that it produces what? The most constructive result. And then you do the same thing for all of the areas
yes,
of activity.
Sir. Okay. All righty. Let's go to line number one. Line number one, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Hello? Hello?
Yes,
Hello.
Go ahead. You're on with Mr. Fuller.
All right. Yes, I can hear you. My question, Mr. Fuller, tomorrow's the 50th anniversary of the Kerner Commission report. Someone who's a little more seasoned in age, and you see younger folk, can you give a little explanation of your thoughts on that? Go back 50 years later of the Kerner Commission report. I think I heard you talk about it before, but I think it's very interesting and timely that we talk about it, because the thing that's out now is nothing's changed in 50 years. We got some of the same issues we had 50 years ago, we still got now.
Okay.
And so I just want to get your take on that 50 years late.
All right. Thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Mr. Fuller?
I have some information right in front of me now that I got from the Washington Post newspaper. This is the leading newspaper in the Washington, D.C. area. And it's dated Tuesday, which was yesterday, February the 27th, 2018, page A3. And it's under Politics in the Nation. That's the headline on it. And it says, Economic Inequality Gap for African Americans endures. So this report finds. Now, they have made a recent report that was based on the report that you're talking about, the Kerner Commission report that was published in the 1960s.
Yes.
Right after the riots.
Yes.
Now, what does it say today on page A3, which was yesterday, Tuesday, February the 27th, 2018? It says here, and I'm looking at it, no progress in 50 years of home ownership and unemployment rates. Talking about black people. That's what it says here. 50 years after the historic Kerner Commission identified white racism as the key cause of pervasive discrimination in employment, education, and housing, there has been no progress in how African Americans fare in comparison to whites when it comes to what? Home ownership, unemployment, and and incarceration. I'm going to say that again. I'm looking right at it. 50 years after the historic Kerner Commission report, that was a report that was made 50 years ago.
Yes.
It identified white racism as the key cause of pervasive discrimination in employment, education, and housing. And then it continues saying, there has been no progress. Didn't say some or maybe. There has been no progress in how African Americans fare in comparison to whites when it comes to home ownership, unemployment, and incarceration. Now, this is not Neely Fuller talking. This is a report that came out yesterday in a leading newspaper. A very, what you might call reliable, is supposed to be.
Or respected, yes.
Information from the Washington Post newspaper. In some cases, African Americans are worse off than they were before the civil rights movement culminated in laws barring housing and voter discrimination as well as racial segregation.
That's been since 1968?
They're worse off. Worse off. Here it is, 2018?
Yeah.
50 years later, you're worse off than you were 50 years ago? Now, this is an official report. It's not coming from me. Now, worse off. And it came from, in case you want to get to the source of where the Washington Post got their source, it says it came from the Economic Policy Institute that was released on Monday.
Now,
you can probably do some research about the Economic Policy Institute.
Yes.
And how to get in touch with them to get that document.
Yes.
To get the whole document that reports this. I don't know. It doesn't say here how you get in contact with them, but I'm sure if you put it in, you can probably find out.
Okay.
The Economic Policy Institute.
As far as you know, was that commissioned under the then President Lyndon B. Johnson, that report, as far as you know?
Yes. President Johnson asked for that report to be made. He said he wanted to find out what was behind the riots, because there was a lot of talk that the communists were behind the riots of 1968, that right after Martin Luther King was assassinated, and all other riots that came before then. And there were riots everywhere in the 1960s, black people in the streets. So he said he wanted to find out exactly what all that was about, whether the communists were behind it or whomever was causing all these riots in all the cities. Black people out in the street rioting all the time, burning, looting. And he said he believed that it might be the communists, but he wasn't sure. So he wanted an investigation, a thorough investigation to find out the cause of the riots. And he, if I remember correctly, it was a governor called Otto Kerner of Illinois.
Otto Kerner,
He assigned him,
Yes.
that governor, the task of finding out what's the cause of the riots. Months later, they came up with a report on the cause.
Okay.
And they had a summary of that report. And in 2 words, they said, it's real simple. White racism. That's the cause of the right.
Okay, let me get this straight before I go to commercial. According to the report that you have, or the newspaper report from the Washington Post, that 50 years later, from 68 until 2018, there has, according to the newspaper article, there has been no progress since 1968. I'm asking.
That's what they're saying.
That's what they're saying.
And that black people, and they say, it says here something about incarceration. Let me see if I marked it off here. Say the share of incarceration, meaning black people in jail, has tripled. Hello?
Yeah. You still here?
Black people in jail has tripled between 1968 and 2016, especially for black men. And then in another part of this article, it says mass incarceration, meaning black people in jail, has become a kind of housing policy.
Wow.
For the poor.
Wow.
All right? It didn't say specifically black people, but that's mostly black people who are filling up the jails. So they say, hey, if you start talking about black people being housed and whether or not black people's housing situation has improved since 1968, yes, if you're talking about if they're housed in jail, it has improved. Because there's more black people in jail than there was then.
Let me do this. TalkToHim@radio.com, and we'll have to come back to that. TalkToHim@radio.com is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here's one that I'd like to share with you. It's the new show on Talktainment Radio called Talking Sports with Mr. Bobby. And this week coming up on March the 6th, we'll have Chuck B. He's a private investigator in the state of Tennessee. He's been a frequent guest on TV1's Fatal Attraction, and he is the owner of the No Quotes brand. He will be my special guest in this second segment of Talking Sports with Mr. Bobby, heard exclusively on TalkToHim@radio.com, radio the way it should be heard. That is Tuesday from 6 p.m. until 7 p.m. right here on TalkToHim@radio.com. And for all the programs that are on there, you can go to TalkToHim@radio.com and look at the homepage and get the listings of each and every program. That's from radio, the way it should be heard. I am Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We're talking about having a code, and Mr. Fuller just dropped a bomb from an article in the Washington Post dated yesterday on the Kerner Commission report. If you haven't read it, if you don't know anything about it, I would strongly suggest that you read this or get a copy of it. We had a discussion about that yesterday, and it's ironic that a caller called in about that, but you should get that. Anyway, it will give you all the information you need. You can also call this number, 1-877-932-9766. You can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, @gmail.com. You can also watch and hear the program by going to Facebook, YouTube, and then type in the word Talktainment, hit the space bar, and then type in the word radio. Scroll down to Talktainment number 2, live on YouTube, and watch the live broadcast. While you're there, hit the subscribe and also the like button. Okay, got a Gmail here, but before we go to the Gmail, let's go to the phone lines. Number 1. Okay, line number 1, you are now on. Turn your radio down, please. You're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead.
Yes, this is Eric calling from Cleveland, Ohio. How you doing, Mr. Fuller?
Still learning.
Okay, my question is real fast. I was listening to Dr. Claude Anderson, and he was suggesting some of the similar things that you were suggesting about having a code and attacking certain discriminatory laws that have helped lock and box black folks in since the 1865 Indian Treaty. My question to you is, how effective do you think we could be challenging certain discriminatory laws against blacks, since history has shown that, and even Dr. Claude Anderson stated this in some of his speeches, that they changed the treaties and they changed the laws at will because they're the white supremacists and that's what they do. So how effective can the code be against it, in your opinion, challenging it, when they just seem to change it at will?
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
When the laws are changed at will?
Yes. It seems like they just come up with laws. When we find one law that's discriminatory and we attack that law, and it seems like we got an advantage, they come up with another law, and they just come up with another law. And it seems like they can come up with laws at will. So how effective as far as the code goes, how effective can we be when the white supremacists can just change laws at will?
Oh, well, you could take that into account, that they change laws at will. So you just make, whenever the white supremacist is like playing, you might say chess or checkers. Anytime the white supremacists make a move, you make a move. You study the move that they made. And then when you study it, then you say, okay, what is the law for? Okay? Now, usually they say that the law is to help people to do better than they're doing. That's what they usually say. All right, keep that in mind. That's what they usually say. So we're making laws to improve something. See, very seldom, or if ever, I don't think they ever say that they're making laws to make conditions worse. They say they're trying to improve something. So you go along with that. Okay, you're making another law to improve over what we already have now. Is that what I understand you to mean, sir or ma'am? And if they say yes, and most likely they will, all right. If it's the white supremacists, they always say that. We're trying to improve everything, okay? So you just look at it, study what was made, and you codify your response to it by saying simply, after you check into it, where's the improvement? See, it always comes down to that question. Now that you have enacted this law, and you said you enacted the law in order to improve something, then you just simply look at it and say, now, you made this law. Now, where is the improvement? And, and you examine it to see if anything was improved. And if it wasn't, just point it out. That's the code. You just follow what you just go along with what they say they're going to do. We're all in a prison. Keep that in mind. So the warden comes around and says, we're going to improve conditions in your cell. So you say, okay, all right, no problem there. Say, well, yeah, we're going to make some changes here. So what you do is just wait and see if the changes that are made are an improvement, and then call it to their attention. Mm-hmm. Why? Because that's all you can really do.
Okay.
But in the meantime, you don't expect any improvements at all. Okay. Now, that's rock solid code anyway.
Before I go to break, is that where we come up with a counter racist code? Is that the point?
Say that again?
I'll tell you what, I'll get it after break. Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., the author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, which he will talk about that book in about 15 minutes or less. We are discussing, do you have a code? And Mr. Fuller, in the first segment of the 2-hour broadcast, has explained about the code. And then the question came up about having a code. We had an excellent call in from Cleveland, Ohio, and Mr. Fuller explained about the uses of a code. And the question I was going to ask before I get to the Gmails, Mr. Fuller, is this. After we have examined the move by the racist, is that the time where we devise a counter-racist code?
I heard the last part of that question. What's the first part?
The first part, after we examine, as you suggested, examine what the white racists have said, after we examine it, is that where we devise a counter-racist code?
Yes, you have a code for everything that you do. That's what we don't have. I mean, when things happen, we just take off in all directions. I mean, usually it's jumping up and down, screaming and yelling about what we don't like.
Okay. All right.
Codification means precision work. Like, you know, a basketball team. We understand that when it comes to basketball. I mean, you know, you're going down the court, you're dribbling. I mean, that's a code. I mean, you violate the laws of dribbling. I mean, you get called as a foul or something like that.
Yes,
from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you dribble in the manner that you're supposed to get the best result.
Okay.
Okay, you don't go outside of the borders and whatnot. They say you stepped across the line, you stepped out of bounds, they call it. I mean, that's a code.
Okay.
It's a way of doing things.
Yes, sir.
All right, so you get so many yards or so many feet in front of the basket, and you know, and that basketball player, if he or she is successful and got a record for being an excellent player, that player has a code. He got a certain way of going about doing everything. I mean, precision work. He knows exactly who he's going to throw it to when he gets so close to the basket. Rather, hey, I'm not, you know, I got a couple of people in front of me. I'm not going for the basket. I'm going to throw the ball back across the court to that other guy who I know where he is because he's following the code. He knows where he's supposed to be. Okay? It's the same way in football. It's the same. We understand that in sports. But when we come off the sports field, we don't understand anything about a code.
Okay.
We have no understanding and don't even attempt to make one. The white supremacists have a code for everything.
Everything. Okay, that needs
I
to be...
mean, why? Because they have found out that when they follow the white code, it always works.
Alrighty.
And the white code is described in the textbook, in the guidebook there on page 55. It's called Code White. And, you know, for every white supremacist, about time that they are around 15 or 16 years old, they make mistakes. You know, even following a code, you might make mistakes. But the basics of the code, they don't make mistakes. And they improve on everything that they do when they practice the white code.
Okay.
If they're white supremacists. That's not talking about all white people, but all white people that believe in white supremacy have become the most successful people in the world at practicing white supremacy and in having power. Their code is all about having power over everybody who is classified as non-white, and they are successful at it because they have a precise way of doing and saying everything that they do and say.
All right.
They just don't say things just any kind of way.
Okay.
They say things in a very orchestrated way, like a well-played violin note.
All right. Let's go to line one. Is that what it is, line one? Line one, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, you often say that the system of white supremacy is very efficient at producing material goods. Do you think that the comfort that these material goods provide keep black people from attempting to counter racism?
Sure, because everybody likes comfort. The white supremacists put that in their equation. They say, we know what makes black people comfortable because we help to make them know what comfort is. Okay, we'll tell them that, you know, that we'll make provisions for them. We'll say that we'll put some new seats and very comfortable seats in a car and whatnot. And we know how to advertise. That's a part of our code. And we'll tell them that, you know, driving this particular car will give them the comfort that they're not used to and improve their, you know, their whatever it is that they consider to be comfortable. And we'll tell them what makes comfort. What is comfort? All right? We'll tell them what it is. We'll tell them that their minds will improve if they, if they wear this type of ring, get this type of bling bling to put around their necks, that they will feel better about themselves, and they'll feel better about themselves because they, for the first time in their lives, if they wear this type of bling bling, they will be somebody. Just put it around your neck, boy. And now you weren't anybody until you put this around your neck, until I put it around your neck. Because the next thing I'm going to put around your neck is a noose. But you don't know that yet. But I'm going to put this bling bling around your neck. I'm going to get you all infatuated with this bling bling, because now this bling bling will make you somebody. You were nobody before you had this. So here it is now. I'm going to put it around your neck now. Now, see how that shines? Well, you all like shiny things, so you just grinning from ear to ear. Oh, yeah. And now you're happy, right? Tell me you're happy. All right? This is the white coat at work, okay? So he's happy, and then one day, he can't afford no more bling bling. See, the racists keep telling him, now you got one piece of bling bling, but that's kind of getting out of style, You got to keep up with the styles, boy, So I got another style here for you. So here's another piece of bling bling, and he keeps going up on the price. So the next thing you know, you need some money to keep up with that bling bling, all right? Because it keeps coming out with another style, and it keeps getting to be more and more expensive. So now, your money won't catch up with what you need to keep up with this comfort level. All right, this is all about comfort. Your mind is comfortable when you got that bling bling on. You can't go out without that bling bling. I mean, you feel naked. See what I mean? You've got in the habit of having it now. Now you can't get the latest, okay? So what do? You rob somebody, all right? That's what he was planning on you doing all along. And now you can afford to go out and keep up with the latest bling bling because you robbed somebody. But now you got to keep robbing people because the price of this type of bling bling keeps going higher. And you got to keep up because you are known to have the latest type of bling bling there in the hood among your homies. And if you ain't got the latest type, you're nothing, all right? So now you're killing people, okay? And now the white supremacists say, hey, the bling bling you got now is a jail cell, all right, with some golden bars. Appreciate that, boy.
Wow.
Box you again because you don't have a code of your own.
A code.
You wait for me to tell you what code is, all right? And I got something for you. Every time.
Every time. TalkTameItRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTameItRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Hi, I am Mr. Bobby. I'm the co-host of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., who is live from Washington, D.C., taking your calls, and hopefully I'll get a chance to get you your outstanding Gmails because I have a few there. But this is the time of the program that we have Mr. Fuller speak about that book. And in that book, it's contained information about the code. So, Mr. Fuller, go ahead and speak about your book, how we can get it, and any other pertinent information.
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. And that will come. What will come up on your screen is the instructions for getting the book. It's 2 volumes there. One is just an extension of the other volume. We've been working out of the Word Guide volume. I don't call it the second volume. It's just all supposed to be one book. I couldn't get it all in one between 2 covers, so I had to get it between 4 covers. And that's the Word Guide, which is an addition to the basic book. So it's a distinction between the basic book and the Word Guide. The basic book, the revised expanded edition, came out in 2016. And the Word Guide came out in 2010. It came out before the revised expanded edition of the 1984 who have the 1984 edition don't get rid of that book. Many people say they get more out of it the way it's written than they do out of the revised expanded edition, even though it's more in the revised expanded edition. But the whole idea of the compensatory code is for you to pick and choose what works for you. But you can get the revised expanded edition and the word guide, which was not out in 1984. There was a small word guide included in the basic book in 1984. If you look in the back, it's back there. But the latest edition, revised expanded, 2016, you can get it by going to producejustice.com. And you can get the word guide if you want to get that too. And that will come in a set. You can get both books, but most people get the revised expanded edition, which is adequate on its own. But the word guide would help you to understand more about how to use words, how not to use words in your everyday pursuits and whatnot. What words, what questions to ask when other people say certain things. Get in the habit of asking questions about definitions. Definitions are everything. There's a lot of words that are just thrown around that do not have adequate definitions. And so that causes what? Confusion. That's the reason I wrote the codified word guide, to give some indication. I don't have all the words in the English language in there, not near. You're just scraping the surface, really, because there's so many words in the English language. I mean, a real English language dictionary is actually, you have to put it on wheels, all right? But I picked out certain key terms that come up kind of frequently, and I put these in the word guide just to give you an idea. And once you get the idea, then you can start doing it on your own, just picking up words or creating words yourself, which I do. You know, counter racism. I invented that, I guess. I mean, I guess the word was around before then. I haven't seen it in a dictionary. I didn't look for it in a dictionary. I just said, well, you got racism, so I'm going to use the term counter racism and say that we need a counter racist code. See? And when you come up with words, that means you have command over those words, because you're the one who knows what the words mean. Why? Because you invented the term. And I invented a term for the word justice because I wasn't satisfied. I invented the definition of the word. The word was already here. But I wasn't satisfied with the definitions that was in all of the dictionaries that I looked in. Used the word fair to mean the same as justice. And fair means white, which means if you're going to be associated with justice, it implies that you got to be white to be associated with justice. So they say fair play. You know, you're not treating me fairly, all right? And so how did fair become associated with justice? And I say the usual suspects, the white supremacists, decided that they would take that word fair and make it synonymous with justice, so that in a person's mind you would say, oh, well, if you start talking about justice, you better look for somebody who's white, because they're the only ones that know about how to produce justice, or how to give you justice. I mean, black people don't know anything about justice, you know. I mean, of course, the dictionary says fair. You know, fair play. Justice is fair play. Treating people fairly. That's what justice is. I didn't accept that definition. So I came up with a compensatory definition, a codified definition, a counter-racist definition that says justice is guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Then I even use that as my internet contact, Produce Justice, which is what I direct people to go to in order to get the book.
Okay.
Because that's what we're supposed to be doing. Ending white supremacy and replacing it with what? Justice.
All righty.
Produce Justice, that's how you get the book.
All right, producejustice.com. Okay, line one. Okay, line one. You're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. This is Brother Muko from Baltimore.
Yes, sir, Brother
We
Muko.
hold the compensatory constructive action discussions every Saturday. And sorry for last week, I missaid the time, but we are doing it at noon this Saturday. Again, we are doing it at noon this Saturday at Lake Clifton. I kind of got a VGQ and a question for Mr. Fuller. My VGQ first is for everybody listening. If what Mr. Fuller is speaking about every day about being on code, if you want a good example of people being a group of individuals being on code, other than the white supremacists today, look at South Africa and what they're doing in South Africa about the redistribution of wealth in Africa without compensation. Everybody is on code there. And for my question, Mr. Fuller, can you please elaborate for my care unit in Baltimore on the 4 Ds and compensatory logic, as you explained? And those 4 Ds that I'm talking about is disappointment, discourage, disown, and death.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one. I didn't invent that. 4 Ds?
Yes.
And you said they're what?
It's disappointment, discouraged, disowned, and death. And I guess when I say I guess I mean in the Word God, these 4 Ds, you have a real distinct discussion in the Word God about those.
Is in the Word Guide?
Yes, sir.
In my Word Guide?
Yes, sir.
The 4 Ds. I don't remember putting that in there. I may have written it somewhere, but I don't remember that at all.
Do you know what
Can
page
you tell
that
me
is?
where it's located?
Yeah.
You know what? And I'm actually don't have my Word guide handy. I forgot to put the page. But wow.
Right.
Yeah,
now that's something that somebody else may have invented, which people should do that. You should invent terms, all right, that work for you as an individual, because everything in codification is about the individual person being empowered. You empower, the concept is you empower that each individual, meaning you solve the problems. See, codification is about problem solving. Those 2 words. If it doesn't solve a problem, it's got no business being in a code. All right? So codification is about everybody having a code that solves the problems of each individual person. Because when you solve the problem of each individual black person, non-white person on the planet, victim of white supremacy on the planet, when you solve the problems of each individual, then you mathematically means you have solved the problems of every individual. And so if you have a code for each and every individual person, that everything that they say and do works to solve their problems, solve his or her problems, wherever she happens to be, or wherever he happens to be on the planet, in the system of white supremacy, you have solved the problems of every person. See, and the white supremacists won't be able to stop that. They can crack down on a group, because most groups have a leader. So all they do, they just keep track of the leader. And they know that the leader is going to die, and then the group usually, starts squabbling about who's going to be the next leader and all like that. They know all about that so-called organizational concept. When it comes to an organization, meaning people getting what we call together. The white supremacists know all about that type. It's called the 4-wall concept. All right? The compensatory code concept is the open air concept, which means each and every individual is an organization. You organize yourself, all right? And how do you organize yourself? I mean, that's a legitimate question. How does a person become an organization. One person is a whole organization by having a code. It's very simple, because that's all anybody in an organization is going to do anyway. You're going to have to leave, when you have your meetings and all like that, you better leave that meeting with a code. Otherwise, what's the point in having the meeting? You haven't done anything. See, black people have been taught that strength means black people coming together. We use that slogan all the time. We got to get together. We got to get together. And we think that if we come and physically stand shoulder to shoulder, and make sure that everybody's shoulder is touching everybody else's shoulder, all right, and then we make that touching as tight as we can, and then, we bug our eyes, all right, and stand there and get our picture taken, we think that's problem solving. Because we all together. We were huddled all together on a slave ship. Black people standing shoulder to shoulder doesn't mean anything. Except that's just a bunch of black people all rounded up like a bunch of cattle and standing shoulder to shoulder. And that's all that means. But if each and one of those black persons walk away from each other, but they walk away with a code of thought, speech, and action. In other words, they know what they are going to do every minute and what they are not going to do, what they are going to say every minute and what they are not going to say, because everything in the universe is about doing and saying. Every ant understands that. Ants work together, but each ant has a code, has the ant code, and ants are going to follow the ant code, all right, even when they are by themselves, okay? And that's what makes the ant colony successful. They know what to do when no other ants are around. Black people, if we don't see another black person around, we feel like hey, we got to drop dead, because we're not able to think or act or do anything unless we are standing shoulder to shoulder, all right, just as tight as we can, just like on the slave ship, and and looking from side to side to see if everybody's in the shoulder, got their shoulder glued to everybody else's shoulder. That's what we call strength. That's what we call organization. Yeah. It's the most stupid concept that could be thought of.
All righty. Thank you, Brother Muko, and we'll talk to you later. Talktainment Radio, talktainmentradio.com, the world's greatest radio, the way it should be heard. That's the first hour. Stay tuned for the second hour of the compensatory concept with Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on talktainmentradio.com.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest, and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Okay, good morning and welcome to the second hour of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., who is live on the phone from Washington, D.C. As you well know, this is the donate hour, meaning that people have donated to the program so that we can keep it going in the second hour, and you have done a wonderful job in doing that. Now, we don't particularly want to tell you how much to donate, but donate to the second hour so we can keep it going on. Brian Gaston, Eric Williams, BW Gifts, Helen Nance, Don Mitchner, and JL. I think his last name is Vance. She is, or Lance, is one of the reoccurring donors. And we'd like to add your name to the donor list for the second hour of the compensatory concept with Mr. Fuller. Now, to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766. You can Gmail me at the number 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. You can also go to YouTube and type in the word Talktainment, hit the space bar and type in the word radio, then scroll down to Talktainment number 2 live on YouTube, and you can hear and watch the program. While you are there, hit the subscribe button and the like button. And finally, if you missed the show, you can go to facebook.com/Talktainment to hear the replay or podcast of the program. So do that. Now, let's get to this. Several Gmails. This comes from Brother McKeon over in England, Mr. Fuller, and he writes this. He says, I'm a black male victim of the system of white supremacy. I often find myself being stronger in some areas of activity than others, but I always seem to fall way short of codified conduct in the eighth area of people activity by acting on my lustful desires when it comes to women and not being able to commit to one woman. I have heard you say in the past that everyone should be truthful about their motives in life, even if it includes sleeping around with different people. I'm starting to think that maybe enjoying the sexual pleasure of different beautiful women is my only motive in life. I would appreciate you, Mr. Fuller, your counter-racist views on why it is so hard to be codified in the eighth area of activity as a victim of white supremacy. Regards, Mr. McKeon from London, England.
Go to the textbook for victims of white supremacy and try to practice what it says you do. For one thing, sexual intercourse should take place no more than twice a week. Now that you discipline yourself like that. That means if you got 5 and 6 phone numbers in your book or whatever, or on your iPad or whatever, it means somebody's going to come up lacking. So that'll take care of itself. See, that's a part of the code. Now, everything in the code is for you to adapt voluntarily. Otherwise, everything in the code is voluntary. But this is how you discipline yourself, because the only real discipline, the only real control that a person should have is the control that they call self-control. So you have to have a code for doing that. Now, you say you have difficulty. Absolutely, you'll have difficulty. If you're a virile, real masculine, male person, you're supposed to have that volatility. All right? Okay, you're given that by the Creator. Okay? But you have to codify it in such a way that you come up with the best results. So, for one thing, you have right there in the code book, it says, one of the 4 things that you do under economics with your time and energy, that you engage in sex no more than twice every 7 days. All right? So if you have the favors of 20 females, it means, somebody's not going to be attended to. That automatically means that. So that reduces the numbers right there. but you have to practice just saying in your own mind. Now, while you're doing it, you do it. You do plenty of it. Because, see, you can't do it but twice a week. So you got to get, just like doing anything else. I mean, while you're doing it, taking a shower or whatnot, you do it. If you can only take a shower twice a week, it means you take a good shower. All right. That when you're in that shower, you spend some time, because you're not going to be able to take another shower except just one more before the week is gone, before 7 days is over. It's the same way that you should discipline yourself with sex. While you're doing it, get all that you can. All right? Let's be honest. Be completely exhausted. All right? You've given all. You didn't leave nothing. Okay? But now when you get out of that bed, you got one more time coming. Okay? That's a recommendation for the code. These are just suggestions. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do anything in the code book. But that's how you said you want to get on track. That's how you do it. Now, so that's an automatic shutdown of the number of females. See, now, what you might have to do, you just might have to pick out the best of the bunch and say, hey, twice a week, and that's it. Because you might have to do, shave the members of your staff, you might say. You got 15 addresses there, you're going to have to get rid of what? Maybe 13 of them or whatever. You're going to have to reduce them.
Yeah.
But that may take you some time and effort. And now here's the other part. You're not supposed to even be in bed with anybody unless you go through, or if you have to agree to this, doing this. Now, the code says this is very important. In the revised expanded edition of the code book, there are about 175 questions. I forgot the actual number I have in there.
Yes.
That's the revised expanded edition. That before you get in bed with anybody to have sexual intercourse, both parties are supposed to ask and answer all of the agreed upon questions that are in that question list. And it's about 105 questions. Yeah. 175, I think.
Libby says 200 questions, but okay.
Hello?
Yeah, Libby Rand that says 200 questions.
How many? Who said that?
Libby Rand on This Is Libby. She said ask 200 questions.
Who is Lily Rand?
I said Libby. She used to be one of the hosts of the compensatory concept, and she has a show. This Is Libby, speaking about holistic things.
Oh, so she made up a list.
200 questions, yes.
Oh, she read the questions that I wrote.
Yeah,
and made up a list of her own.
No, your questions plus I think 50 more.
Oh, I see. All right. Well, see, you can have unlimited questions, or you can have very limited questions.
Yeah, the point is ask questions.
The whole idea is not how much sex you're having.
Right.
Is that everybody understands. Everybody's on the same page.
That's
so that
right.
You don't have what?
Confusion.
You don't have conflict. That's the one thing you do not want in male-female interaction. No kind of conflict. And how do you eliminate conflict? It's because everybody knows what everybody's doing.
Okay.
It has to be that way.
All righty.
I mean, and that's a painful pill for us to get used to, because we have been taught to systematically be deceitful when it comes to sex. No, all deceit has got to go out the window.
Got to go.
Everything's got to be up front.
All righty.
If everybody's got 5 partners apiece, everybody has to know that if they're interacting with each other. Not supposed to be any secrets.
No
None.
secrets. Okay.
0.
All righty. Another email, Gmail. Let's see. I'm not going to mention this person's name, but this person says, my question for Mr. Fuller. In 2011, Mr. Fuller, you said that white supremacists only allow certain amount of blacks to have relationships with white or sexual relations with whites to create a delusional environment. The delusion being that racism or white supremacy is disappearing because of interracial engagements. recently you said that white and black relationships could be at a tipping point because it is growing. Do you really believe that white supremacy would allow black and white relationships to become so great that it could threaten the existence of white supremacy?
If I understand the question, the answer to that question is the white supremacists make sure that they control the sexuality of non-white people, particularly of black males. They make sure that they control that. No matter what, how much of it, you see so-called interracial couples, there ain't no such thing. There's no such thing as that, okay? You see that in a growing numbers in many parts of the world. The white supremacists orchestrated that. That wasn't a decision, was not a decision that black males made. I mean, that's a decision that the white supremacists made. But they control it. See, they watch the numbers. See, that's part of the racial showcasing. That's to give the illusion that the race problem is being solved in the bedroom by having a sizable number of black and white people having sexual intercourse and parading around, in front of people on television and everything else, that we are engaged in a sexual liaison, that, black and white together, in bed, all right, unlimited sex. But that's an illusion. For the percentages, because the white supremacists operate on business principles. So they know that if they put a certain number out in certain places, see, they don't do it every place. They do it in certain places where it will be obvious. They do it on television, and they do it in some cities. They have more of it in some cities than they have in others, all right? It's all the percentages. It's like any business. Any business is run on percentages. And sex is a percentage business. And sex and race is a percentage business. So the white supremacists figure that in the refined stage of white supremacy, you have to have a certain number of white females having sexual intercourse with black males and strutting around in the middle of the sidewalk, arm in arm, letting the world know that this is what's going on. Now, this is an illusion. It's designed to do just that, to give the impression that the race issue is going away through sexual intercourse. There's been plenty of sexual intercourse going on nonstop since the beginning of racism. It has not solved the race problem. A lot of black people think that that will solve the race problem. It will not. It will not. In fact, the way that the white supremacists control it, and then when you add on all of the sexual confusion that they're adding to the racial confusion, there used to be, there's three categories of race: white, black, and mulatto. And when was this? According to the census in the northwestern hemisphere, this was in, 1860. There's three classifications. Now, here it is in the year 2000. Now, this is 2018, but in 2000, that three classifications became 21 classifications. And what do you get when you start adding classifications of race? You get more confusion.
More confusion.
Now they're doing the same thing with sex. Mm-hmm. One of the latest reports that I'm getting, and I mentioned this on another program that I was on a few days ago. Somebody sent me a booklet of one of the leading universities, black universities, where they went out of their way. Somebody did. I say the white supremacists are definitely behind it, because they're behind anything that black people do sexually. All right? So they have gone from male and female, and if you're talking about the so-called LGBTQ community, I don't know how many letters in that alphabet, all right? But now, according to this booklet that just came out, for students that are going to be educated, black students, there are 29 categories of sexuality. This is going to be taught in black universities, at least one, and it'll probably spread to others. And they say not only taught, but supported. 29. Now, who would be the suspects in counter-racist science that you would think would say that black people, in order to improve themselves, all right, particularly what you call black universities, historically black universities, that what they need is not better school tuition. What they need is not better school housing. What they need is not better food in the cafeteria. What they need is 29 categories of sexuality. And this is what you're going to be paying for to go to school to learn?
Wow. That's something else. Before I go to this commercial, someone has just asked me to ask you about you said there was something about a report that came out in the Washington Post concerning the Otto Kerner's report back in 1968. What was that again? You had mentioned it in the first hour. The Kerner Commission.
Oh, that's the what I have here.
Yes.
I mentioned in the first hour, page A, alphabet A, A3 of the Washington Post newspaper, Tuesday, February the 27th, which was yesterday, 2018. Page A3, under Politics and the Nation. It says here, 50 years after the Kerner Commission report identified white racism as the key cause of pervasive discrimination in employment, education, and housing, there has been no progress. Now listen to those words. This is 2018. There has been no progress in how African Americans fare in comparison to whites when it comes to home ownership, unemployment, and incarceration. That's three things they said in 50 years has not improved. Black people owning homes, all right? This is not Neely Fuller talking. This is an official report. It came from an organization called the Economic Policy Institute.
Okay.
I guess you can look that up somewhere.
Okay.
But it said no progress in home ownership, unemployment, and incarceration.
50 years.
Those three things. Everything has not improved at all.
Wow.
When it comes to black people having a home.
Okay.
In 50 years, there's been no progress at all. They said none.
None.
Okay?
Okay.
A
Alrighty.
lot of people, that might be surprising, but, I didn't say it.
Okay.
I mean, this is an official report.
Right. We have the sources there.
Didn't come from me.
Okay. TalkTainMenRadio.com is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, health, wellness, law, religion, and politics. Now, here's one that I'd like to bring to your attention, and it will premiere on March the 6th, 2018. It's Talking Sports with Mr. Bobby, and in the second segment of Talking Sports with Mr. Bobby, heard exclusively on TalkTainMenRadio.com, we will have Chuck B. Now, Chuck B. is a private investigator in the state of Tennessee. He also is a frequent guest on TV One's Fatal Attraction. You may have seen some of his work. And he's also the owner of No Quotes Brand. And he communicates with a lot of professional athletes. He communicates with youth, try to institute a mentoring program to bring our youth up. He will be in the second segment of Talking Sports with Mr. Bobby, which is heard exclusively on TalkTainMenRadio.com from 6 p.m. until 7 p.m. on Tuesday. So make sure that you tune in. As a matter of fact, you can go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage, click on programs for all the scheduled times of the Talktainment programs. This is from radio, the way it should be heard. Hello, I am Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller on TalkTainmentRadio.com. You can view the show and watch the show by going to YouTube, type in the word Talktainment, then hit the space bar and type in the word radio. Scroll down to Talktainment number 2 live on YouTube, and you can watch the broadcast right now live. While you are there, hit the subscribe button and the like button, and remember this, when you go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage, hit that donate button, please, because that is how the second hour is funded. Neely Fuller Jr. and yours truly are not compensated. Let me make that clear. We are not compensated for your donations. They go strictly to the production of the second hour of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. So make sure that you do that. Anyway, all the shows, you can access that by going to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage. That is from radio, the way it should be heard. 1-877-932-9766 is the number to get in contact with the show. That's one of the ways. Right now, we have a phone call on line 1. Okay, line 1, this is your moment. You're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yes. I have a question. First of all, this is Reggie calling from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
Compensatory, out of your compensatory code book, clarification, if you will, Mr. Fuller, on something. Page 13 of your book talks about all powers, the 4 basic types of power among people of the known universe. All power comes first, and then says the superior power, which is white supremacy, is second only to all power. However, on page 63, in the economics section, there's a statement that says, therefore, it is compensatory counter-racist logic for non-white people to ask white people for what is needed, and when they don't receive it, they must compensate by interacting with the powers of the known and unknown, which is the Creator, God, Allah, all power. Is that suggesting, please clarify that, because that seems like it's suggesting that all power comes second in that section, when in the first section of page 13 it suggests that all power comes first. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
All right,
there's some confusion there, correct? Well, there shouldn't be any confusion or any contradiction there. So let's. I want to get this focus in my mind because I think I know how I've written it.
Yes, sir.
Now, you say that. Let's get this straight. All power, first of all, is the Creator of the universe.
Yes.
But superior power, meaning those people who tell black people what to do on a day-to-day basis, and black people do it, are the white supremacists.
Mm-hmm.
But now, when we ask, if we go over to page 63, where is that? Choose the beg, which part did you want on page 63?
Yes.
I have page 6 is right here.
Okay, it's below the choose the beg section, or paragraph. It says as long as white supremacy exists, that paragraph.
I see it.
Into it says, therefore, and if you take from like the middle of that paragraph, therefore it is compensatory counter-racist logic, so forth. It says for non-white people to ask white people for what is needed, and when they don't receive it, they must compensate by interacting with the powers of the known and unknown, which is includes all power, or the deities, whatever God that person believes in. So I didn't know if in that case it looks like it's second. Like if you don't get what you need from white supremacists, then you go to God. When on page 13 it looks like the only power that is second to all power is white supremacy. So I just want clarification.
Oh, it seems like a contradiction there.
Yes, sir.
In other words, well, it comes down to what move do you make first? Do you go to your creator first, or do you go to the white supremacists? Well, you can go to either one. See what I mean? That's what the implication is, because what do you mean by going to? You're always in touch with the creator, because the creator's in touch with you because you're breathing. All right, so you always know that. In fact, I say breathing is a part of your prayer. All right, people are praying all the time because whether they know it or not, because they're breathing. Okay, and so, but being conscious of your breathing, you can make that. I certainly make it a part of what I call prayer, because I say that is the prayer. I don't need another prayer. I don't need to say anything. I mean, I know that I'm breathing, so I recognize that and have a regard for that every day when I wake up. And I was breathing all through the night. So you're always in touch with the Creator, because the Creator's in touch with you. See, so it's not a matter of whether you talk to the Creator first and then you go to the white supremacists, because you're always talking to the Creator, because the Creator's always talking to you. It's just a matter of what you do about the talk. All right? So when you go to the white supremacists, you're going to the white supremacists because that's where the Creator led you. This is where you are. You're in the white supremacist jail. So how did we wind up in the white supremacist jail? We were born in it, all right? So the Creator, whatever created me, knows that. That's just a logical assumption. See, everything in codification is about logic. And there's no way to squirm around logic. And if you try to squirm around it, then you're heading for disaster anyway, because anything that works got to be logical if it's going to work. So you're always in touch with the Creator, because the Creator's in touch with you. People say, well, I got to get in touch with my Creator. You're always in touch with the Creator. It's just what you're doing about it. So the Creator automatically leads me every day to be in touch with the white supremacists, because I'm in the white supremacist jail. They are always in touch with me. Otherwise, they could not be supreme over me. They couldn't make me do nothing. Because I just simply say, I'm not doing what you all tell me to do. Nothing. Y'all tell me to get a job and whatnot. I'm not getting no job. I don't need a job. No, but I'm not going to tell them that. Why? Because I'll be hurting if I do that. I'll be wanting for things. So the Creator, I'm assuming, knows all of this. Because I know it. If I know it, the Creator knows it. So I'm going to the white supremacists first. And the Creator knows I'm going to the white supremacists first. See, so I'm in touch with the Creator anyway. All right?
I see.
The Creator's not sitting there, I think, sleep, and then I wake the Creator up and say, I went to the white supremacists before I got to you. And I'm informing you of that.
All righty.
That's not logical.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you, sir. Talktainment with Mr. Neely Fuller, and we are discussing code or codification, however you want to download it, but you must have a code. And Mr. Fuller has been addressing those, that action, and also your Gmails, which have been outstanding, and I have quite a few Gmails I hopefully like to get through, but we got to get to the phone calls. You can do so by calling 1-877-932-9766 to Gmail me now. I'm not sure if it will get on today's program, but the numero 7, MrBobby@gmail.com. And you can also do this. If you want to look at me, and I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you can look and hear the program. All you have to do is go to YouTube, type in the word Talktainment, hit the space bar, and then type in the word radio, and scroll down to Talktainment number 2 live on YouTube, and watch the broadcast live. While you are there, hit the like button and the subscribe button. That'll make somebody happy. Yeah, make me happy too. And also, one important thing, while you're here on the TalktainmentRadio.com homepage, hit that donate button. Please do that, because that is how the second hour of the compensatory concept with Mr. Fuller is funded. Mr. Fuller and myself are not compensated by any monies that go directly to that. We don't get anything from that at all. It all goes to the pure funding of the second hour. So please do that, and you'll get a mention as Brian Gaston, Eric Williams, BW Gifts, down there in that fine city of Houston. Helen Nance, Don Minster, and JL said it would give her a mention, and we can give you a mention too as they print it out for us. Okay, back to a man's got to have, or a person's got to have a code, and Mr. Fuller's been talking about that. Mr. Fuller, I have a two-part question from Cleo. This is the first question. Mr. Fuller, my question for you is, what is your take on this whole new transracial dynamic? We saw Rachel Dolezal, a born white woman who claimed that she was black or biracial. Now there's a 17-year-old white teen claiming transracial or born white, but transitioned into a black person status. What is your take on that in the system of white supremacy?
Codification. The code that I have put out said there are 3 classifications. See, that's what I mean by having a code. You don't deviate. Once you put it in writing and say this is the counter-racist code, because you're supposed to be working against racism, period. There's not supposed to be any such thing as race, period, because there isn't any such thing as race. In nature, I mean, in the natural order of things, people are different heights, different shapes, different colors. People have different shapes of the ears and noses and whatnot. Or they are members of a race. You know, if you have a size 10 foot, and that's different from a size 7 foot, is the size 7 foot another race of people? And if it is, what is that supposed to mean? That you treat the person with a size 7 foot differently from a person who has a size 10 foot, okay? Well, you do treat the person differently when you're fitting them for a shoe. But that's just about all. I mean, but if you start saying whether or not they can be employed, or whether or not they can have a house, or whether or not they can be educated, and what the education is going to consist of, and you're going to base it on a person that has such,
not going to get a decent house because, you got a size 7 shoe. I thought you had a size 10 foot. Oh, no, we can't give you a house. We can't let you have a house. You know, no. And not only that, you get on the other side of town. I mean, you know, you're in a category that, hey, you know, you're in that lower category. No. But that's what they have done with this thing called color. So in answer to the question directly, there's 3 categories: white, non-white, and white supremacists, according to the counter-racist code. And you don't deviate from that.
Okay.
Now, anybody who comes up with anything else, like they are proposing now, they got 21 categories of race right now, and they say with the new census coming out in the Northwestern Hemisphere, they're going to have even more.
Yeah, 29.
Which is more confusion.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes. Okay.
And the handbook for sexuality, they got, you know, one handbook that I looked at that somebody sent me the other day, in a black university, 29 categories of sexuality for black people to start wrestling with now.
Wow.
I mean, and start embracing and supporting. I mean, in order to do what? Is anybody asking the logical question? In order to accomplish what? Is this what Harriet Tubman and all the people that came before us here in the last of Black History Month, is this what we fought for? 21 categories and counting of raciality, all right? And we just nodding our heads going along with it. And then the second most powerful force, other than the system of white supremacy, is sexuality. Now we're talking about 29 categories of sexuality for black people to go chasing after and supporting, like this is some type of miracle cure for people's problems. All of the people of the world. I mean, who is coming up with all of this? Is anybody asking where all this is coming from? Well, the code says who benefits most from it. All these different categories of raciality and all these different categories of the second most powerful force other than white supremacy, and that's sexuality. And you're going to come up with 29 categories and counting.
And counting.
And then go and tell black people, now, hey, you got 21 categories and counting of raciality, and you got to learn all of them now and get them down pat. Otherwise, you can't get a decent house. You can't get a decent job. You're not educated. You're not up with the program. And you got 29 categories of sexuality that you got to support. Otherwise, you're in, or you are non-cooperative, or you are discriminatory, or you are a bad person. The white supremacists are behind all of this, folks.
Yes.
I'm making a flat statement. And we should examine it within that context.
Okay.
Period.
All righty. And he goes on to say that he says that he has an acquaintance of some of his friends who he turned on to your message, and part of that resonated with him most is the universal man and universal woman idea. The problem is that some of them are using your concept as a rationale to travel overseas in search of a non-black, mainly one who is white, when clearly that's not what you're referring to. So can you please clarify exactly what you mean by African Americans in this country becoming universal human beings? Thank you. My name is Cleo.
I'm advocating that everybody on the planet becomes universal man and universal woman. But the code also says you can't have that under no system of white supremacy. And anything that looks like it's heading toward that, you are nullifying the production of universal man and universal woman. Because leading up to that, you got to get rid of white supremacy first, or you're not going to have universal man, universal woman anyway. I mean, you cannot have white supremacy in a universe of universal man and universal woman. You can't have any kind of mistreatment of people. And the thing about sex intercourse between white and non-white, that's going to be left for last. All right? There's plenty of it going on and has been, but I'm saying take care of all of the problems of the world first before it's any more of sexual intercourse and or sexual play between white and non-white people on this planet called Earth. Do away with that completely. Now, it's going on. But this is what you have to do if you call yourself going to get on board with having the type of world that we should have. For one thing, a lot of white people do not want sexual intercourse between white and non-white, but they want it if they can control it. All right, and they have already proven that because it's everywhere and always has been. But I'm saying until we get housing and all these other things that the last reports say, that, and I'm talking about worldwide, everything in place. Every black person has a decent meal every day, the correct meal, the constructive meal. Every black person, every non-white person is fed correctly, housed correctly, has health care correctly. Save the bedroom between white and non-white for last. That's last. And even when it's last, you examine it to see if it's the best thing to do. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of white people say that if you have mixed black with white, and that's been proven, you're going to get something other than white. So you have to have some type of preservation cause, because not even black people should want a species of people to disappear. We're reasonable about that, or we should be. We shouldn't want white people to disappear just because they're white. But we want white people to be constructive in everything that they do, just like we want non-white people to be constructive in everything that they do. everything that we do in every area of activity, 24/7, in order to qualify for what? The title of what we all should be working to be. Universal man with universal woman.
All righty.
That's what we should be working for.
Okay, let's go to the phone lines. Number 1. Okay, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, line 1.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, peace to the Mr. Fuller and the host and the platform. What I wanted to ask, or the question about, was what would Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. have to say about, in the system of racism, white supremacy, which I consider sophisticated terrorism? What would he have to say about the area of religion where Europeans have constructed a false Son of God concept, or followed a pattern, and alleged that Jesus, peace be upon him, they said he was a white man, and they gave us idolatrous pictures of him and said he was the Son of God. How does this play into now, after black people refuse this idea, but they consider themselves to be gods with the Creator or over the Creator? How does this play into racism, white supremacy, as black people being gods?
Okay.
In the system of racism, white supremacy.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Keep it simple. Go straight to the code book, where it's simple. All right? What does the code book say about religion? All right? What is a religion? Strong belief backed up by action. So I just have 3 things to say about any religion. I mean, I don't even have to get into the details of whether Jesus was white, or whether he was 6 feet tall, or whether he was 4 feet 4 inches tall, or whatnot, or whether or not, he came here and came there, and what he ate for breakfast on any particular Thursday. I don't get into any of that. All right, and I recommend that when you have religious discussions, you don't. You just simply 3 things is recommended in the code. Just 3. Keep all religion real simple. That's one of the things. But I'm saying that's the umbrella. You're going to take this whole... See, people are fighting all over the world right now about religion. People are hitting each other over the head with the Bible. People are slaughtering each other about their differences in religion and whatnot. I'm saying, keep it simple. Just say, hey, what does your religion require you to do? That's when you talk to anybody about, a lot of people say that they have a religion. So you don't argue about what a person's religion is. I don't care what kind of religion it is. See, there are thousands of tribal religions, I have been told. It's not just Christianity and Judaism and Hinduism and Confucianism and Islam. These are the major ones. But I understand there are really, if you go to village all over the planet, you find that a lot of tribes have their own religion that's completely separate from anybody else's religion. So how are you going to deal with all of that? So the code just says, hey, take a universal approach to everybody's religion. Just simply ask a person, because it takes a person to have a religion, and just ask that person, what is the name of your religion, sir? Okay, or ma'am. What's the name? Because most religions have names. And let them tell you. That's number 1. Number 2, what does your religion require you to do in all of the 9 areas of activity? Now you're moving to number 2 now.
Okay.
What does your religion require you to do in economics, ma'am or sir? In education, in entertainment.
All 9 areas.
Lay all the 9 areas of activity. And then you go to the 3rd question, which is the clincher question. All right? Just 3 questions here. That's all. What does your religion require you to do when you interact with me? In other words, when you see me coming, what does your religion require you to do about me? You don't have to tell me nothing about how much you know about Moses, or how much you know about Confucius, or how much you know about the woman at the well, or how about how long Jesus hung on the cross. You don't have to tell me none of that.
Just those three questions.
I just want to know what your religion tells you to do about me.
Okay.
That's all I need to know.
All righty, let me get
this. This is code.
Okay.
If everybody does that on the planet, things will smooth out real quick.
Real quick. Okay,
because everything comes down to what somebody's going to do about you when they interact with you. That's where the problem starts.
That's where it is. Let me get this other question in here. Go ahead. Line one now? One? Okay, line one. Go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. My name is Neely. I just wanted to ask Mr. Fuller a question about, it seems as if economic, a friend of mine was having a conversation about when did white supremacy replace the black male with economics for the female by offering the female economics through welfare and various other incentives. And I was told at one time, I don't know if this is true, that there couldn't even be a black male at the house. That they had to hide toothbrushes and stuff like that when the welfare lady or the welfare person came through to check. And so I wanted to ask Mr. Fuller, in the system of white supremacy, where economic is, of course, the white supremacist uses, now the black female is employed amongst the non-white people of the northwestern hemisphere. The black female does not have a problem getting a job. It seems like that report that you were talking about earlier in the program does not include her. She's able to find work and has money, and the black male is not wanted for anything except for maybe sexual play, maybe. So my question is, how does the black man bring himself back in an economically enslaved world, a world that depends on economics and has replaced him with money?
Okay.
He doesn't have.
Mr. Fuller?
The white supremacists do not intend for black males to be men. Period. And we're not men. You cannot be subject to white supremacy and be a man. That's impossible. We are boys, and we have to face that. You have to actually get rid of the entire system of white supremacy in order to qualify for the title of man. There's no such thing as a black man walking the face of this planet anywhere. That's impossible. You can't be a prisoner of war and be a man. You can't function as a man. We are born prisoners of war. The war against the non-white people of this entire planet. See, stop saying, specifying places. There's no place where a black male is a man under the system of white supremacy, and the system of white supremacy takes in the entire globe. That's impossible. You can't function as a man in the system of white supremacy. Taking off your shirt and getting another tattoo and wearing your hair long like Samson in the Bible, that doesn't do anything. That's just fooling yourself. Putting on some dark shades and trying to look ominous does not make you a man. That's what black males have been dependent on. We're really, 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 really some pitiful people. We come under the title of pitiful people. We need to be pitied. Somebody have pity on us because we are helpless. We are born in the system of white supremacy, but we can get helpful with a code. That's what I wrote the code for.
Yes, sir.
But right now we have no say-so over the black female.
Okay.
Because we have no say-so over ourselves. And black males throughout, in other parts of the world who think that they are the head of the village and all like that. Mm-hmm. You're not the head of nothing. Sir, out of all due regard, the white supremacists run your village, even if you never see them, because they determine whether or not your village is going to have the little things that you get.
Yes.
All right? That's what white supremacy means. So there's no such thing as a black head of any household anywhere.
Okay.
You're not the head of anything.
Alrighty. Last one. This comes from Aaron from Spain. He says, Mr. Fuller, as an avid listener of the show and follower of the compensatory code, I believe that you, Mr. Fuller, and Talk to Him may require some type of action to rectify this issue that I'm getting ready to bring up. There is an individual who I have seen use snippets from the show and some cartoon animations. These cartoons have diluted your message, Mr. Fuller, by using humor, profanity, which I know is something that you, Mr. Fuller, disapprove of. The individual in question recently collaborated with a rapper, media type. It was on his show or podcast that from a video of this individual that has a company, and I'm not going to mention the name, that he supposedly had contacted Mr. Fuller's audio from Talk to Him and Radio's broadcast. I know that you are aware of a great list of individuals who do this, that have used Mr. Fuller's work for their own gain. However, I believe that this use of the code is non-constructive, and if we as followers of the code do not stop this type of nonsense, then years of work will be destroyed. Mr. Fuller, please let me know what you plan to do about this type of action against people plagiarizing your work. Kind regards, Brother Aaron from Spain.
I'm asking people to stop doing it. Stop doing it. Anything that you say, I want people to use the material. That's why I wrote it. But use it within the context that I put it out. Now, if they're going to add something or say something about their ideas and use profanity in all kinds of ways, or just mention something that's in my code book or something I've said on the air, then put it in that context. Say, now, this is what Neely Fuller says, but I got something to say. And then go ahead and say what you got to say. Yes, I'm not. I believe people speak in their own viewpoints in whatever way they want to do it. But don't make it look like it's all the same part of the same piece of cloth, all right, when it isn't. I mean, just like I wrote a book, I put my name on it, okay? If somebody else writes a book, put your name on the book. And then say that, and Neely Fuller, I quote Mark Twain, all right, on the air. But when I make a quote, and I know it came from Mark Twain, I say, now this is Mark Twain's quote, all right?
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with my quote. See, I make that separate. I say, this is what Mark Twain said.
Right.
I read something from the Washington Post this morning. I made it very clear over and over again. It was on page...
A3 or
I gave
A1?
whatever page number I gave.
Mm-hmm.
But I repeated that this came from the Washington Post. And I gave the organization that the statements came from.
Yes, you did.
These are not my statements.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
That's what I ask other people to do.
Okay. Now, one more thing. You can get the book by going to producejustice.com?
Going to producejustice.com.
Okay. Yatori?
Producejustice.com.
Okay, Yatora, Larry, and Root Dog, I'll get